All right, today, foliar feeding. What is it? Why do we care? Let's get into it. All right, so to begin, what is foliar feeding and why is it important? Foliar feeding, as the name implies, has to do with the foliage or the leaves of the plant. So it is applying a spray solution of some combination of nutrients directly onto the top and the bottom of the leaves. And why is foliar feeding important can be really looked at through three main points. First, it is a direct application of a nutrient to that plant where you get fast absorption directly through the leaf tissue. The second thing is I can bring a very specific input if I notice a deficiency in my plant directly to the leaf where I'm going to get a faster absorption of that specific nutrient. And the third component is that it is an incredibly cost-effective way to bring certain inputs to that plant because I can do it in a very targeted way with a much lower input cost. Let's break it down. So first and foremost, the way that plants absorb gases and nutrients through their leaves is through this magical little portal called the stomata. The stomata is a cell on that leaf surface that opens and closes. What regulates the opening and closing of that stomata is what's called a guard cell. So there are these little sentinels, these little guard cells that regulate the opening and closing of that stomata. And when those stomata open, they are able to absorb carbon dioxide, hence the carbon capture, but they're also able to absorb nutrients through those leaves. So with the capacity of a plant to absorb nutrients directly into their system at a faster, more efficient rate than directly in the soil, we're able to put together a beneficial foliar feeding regimen in our cultivation practice that allows us to deliver an array of nutrients directly to that plant. So as an example of a targeted application, the second component that we're looking at here, oftentimes we will look at calcium as a really important component in the plant's nutrient base. In one of our previous tips and tricks video, we spotlit calcium as that sort of really important component. What we're able to do with our foliar sprays is that we can bring calcium directly into that sprayer and we can apply it directly to the plants to augment the calcium that's in the soil. We can bring it straight to the foliar feeding. This is one example of a targeted application of a specific nutrient that the plants need. An example of the cost-effective nature of this is BioBiz BioHeaven, which is a tricantanol-based product. Tricantanol is the component that BioBiz has isolated in BioHeaven that is a plant growth regulator and is a sort of miracle molecule that we got turned on to early days of our cultivation, and we've sort of hung on to it as an important component. BioHeaven is a very expensive input. The process of capturing tricantanol in the solution is apparently very expensive. So with that said, trying to apply BioHeaven directly in the reservoir is not cost effective, but applying it in our foliar feeding is incredibly effective, and it gets that tricantanol applied to that plant in a much smaller dose and ultimately is a much more cost-effective approach. So we use a huge Herky sprayer here in our commercial cultivation, but this Echo sprayer, it's a 2-gallon sprayer, I want to say, that is bulletproof. They work incredibly well, and this is a must-have for your home grow or for your garden at home if you're cultivating vegetables. These sprayers are fantastic. And if you're spraying any of the organic pesticides, we recommend that you have 2 separate sprayers, one that you do for your pesticides and one that you do for your beneficials. So Foliar feeding accomplishes these three things so effectively that you really want to think about foliar feeding as not a value added, yeah, maybe I could throw it in, to really, this is a core component of your cultivation practice. So with all of the different aspects of foliar feeding that we've just looked at, understand this. It's an incredibly fast way to get nutrients to your plants. It's an incredibly specific way, a targeted way to get a specific nutrient to your plants if you notice a deficiency. And it's also an incredibly effective way to take some really expensive inputs and distill them down into small dosing for foliar application and still get the benefit of that product. If you'd like to get more information about our specific recipe that we use for our foliar feeding, please click the link below. Check out our online course where we've got tons of information for you to check out. And until then, keep cultivating.